And this week's guest needs very little introduction. He's one of the legends of not just trance music, but someone who's helped shape the sound of dance music over the past 20 years. Please give it Enhanced Sessions. Welcome to Ferry Corsten. Welcome, man.
Thanks, man.
Nice to have you in London. The reason why you're here is because you've got an album out today.
Yeah.
Tell us all about it.
It's called Connect.
Yep.
And why Connect? Well, it's literally sort of me connecting with my younger self. All the various styles of music that I've done over the years, all the genres, like what you said in your intro. Yeah, that's basically in a nutshell what that album is all about. So it's the sounds of back in the day, but it's today. And
I've heard a few records off the album already. It sounds like there's a real mix of genres on there. What's your approach when you're in the studio, when you're writing something that might be a little bit out of your comfort zone, maybe something you're not so used to? How do you approach that?
I really like trying to get a bit of every genre in every track, right? So, but the balance would be, let's say I make a trance track, it would be 90% trance, but there's elements of house in there or techno.
Yeah.
And the other way around as well.
Yeah.
So,
and even some drum and bass as well, right?
Yeah, that was a real cool sort of, chain of events, how that happened. I mean, Circadian was asking us, look, I have this track by System F for Farius, my favorite track of him ever, Cry, and can I remix that?
So it came to you?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
And then I think we approached Andy.
The Andy C remix.
Yeah, for punk. Yeah. And nowadays, you don't really do remixes anymore. It's a collab, right?
Yeah.
Makes way more sense.
Yeah.
But it's cool. All of a sudden, I collabed on a drum and bass record, which is awesome.
What's great though is that, like you say, the album's about reconnecting with your younger self and stuff. And obviously, having been in this game for so long, how do you keep the energy and enthusiasm kind of moving throughout your career? Because there must be times when you go, oh, this is knackering.
It's definitely that. I definitely had times like that. The thing is just to, I guess, maximize your time, right? Don't always expect you to walk out of the studio with your next big track.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have days that nothing happens, and use the time wisely to just, I don't know, start making sound effects or new presets and
just messing around.
And that the happy accidents have led, for me, also always to the biggest tracks.
Yeah.
Like Punk was a happy accident. Out of the Blue was a happy accident.
Really?
Yeah, they were all happy accidents.
That gives us all hope, because sometimes I'm in the studio going, really trying to get it going. But
You get angry at your synth. Like, why don't you perform for me? What's your fault? It's your fault.
And speaking of using that time wisely, I mean, obviously you're still touring a huge amount. How do you kind of balance that studio time, obviously home life? You're a dad as well.
Yeah.
And the touring as well. How difficult is that?
I think over the years I found a modus operandi, if you will, how to deal with that. I gotta be honest, I mean, I do take more weekends off nowadays, balance it out a bit better. But I try to get a lot of stuff done in the studio, and if I can't really finish it, or I feel like, okay, it's there, but I will never be able to finish it before the weekend. Anyway, I prep it in such a way that I bring it on the road with me.
Yeah, okay, cool.
So work from the laptop, and then when I get back, after touring, I just...
It's incredible. I bet when you first started out, you would have never thought that one day you'd be sitting in a taxi finishing off a record.
Yeah.
It must be such a feeling.
It's
and speaking of having been around for so many years, we have here at Enhanced we've picked out 3 of our favourite of your records. And I was wondering if you wouldn't mind just telling me a little bit of a quick backstory about 3 of them. And the first one I've got here is your album, obviously, System F, Out the Blue. Do you remember how old you were, where you were living, what was going on?
How old was I? Maybe it's 24, 25.
Yeah.
I was still living with my parents. The attic was my bedroom, or rather my studio with a bed in it.
Yeah.
It was an amazing period.
And did you know when you were putting it together, this is going to be an album, or were you just kind of experimenting? Or?
Well, Out of the Blue came out as a single first,
of
and
course,
all of a sudden the success of that was like, okay, now, we need to come up with an album and this and that. So you start really working on new music, and I've always told myself, like, look, the next track as System F, the follow-up to Out of the Blue, should not be exactly like a carbon copy of Out of the Blue, with one note difference. So the next one was Cry.
I was gonna say, and obviously which has the remix that's been out this year as well.
Yeah. So, but then getting creative, and I was heavy into the whole 80s sound already back then. You can hear bits and pieces of that with Mark Helmet on it, and so just try to come up with an album that sounds varied. Yeah.
This one, I don't know if you remember this one, but this one was you as System F with Armin.
Yeah.
This is Exhale.
Yeah.
Tell me about this one.
Armin was at my place. I wasn't living at my parents' place anymore.
Come around for Sunday lunch with mum and dad.
And we were just we were just goofing around in the studio, really. You know, when you do a collab, you sit together. It's always there's a little bit of an awkwardness when someone starts playing the keyboard. And I can play the keyboard, but I'm not really a skilled pianist, right? And so is Armin. So it was a bit like, okay.
That first bit's always awkward, isn't it?
Yeah.
You sit there, you go, okay, who's gonna make the first move?
Exactly. It was that. So who's diving in first, and who's gonna go into the awkward bit here? So I can't remember how that came about, the melody, but all of a sudden we had it, and it's like, yes, here we go. And I had the JP 8000 and the JP 8080.
Wow. So
hooked them both up, and the synth came from the main riff came from the 800 of the 8000, and the gnarly bass line.
Yeah.
That's the 8080. I remember that.
And the rest is history.
Yeah.
And the last one we have is one of your Gouryella records.
Gouryella, the Gaia.
Yeah. I mean, this is probably my favorite Gouryella record, I think.
Nice.
I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, the melody, the chord progression, everything. How did that one start? And where were you in life at that point?
I was definitely already a few Gouryellas in with Tiesto, and we were sort of like, I felt we were due for a new one. And then, so I was talking to Thijs about it, and he's like, you know what, I kind of want to change my sound, so I don't really want to continue with Gouryella. That's when he went off into the whole other direction. And so I teamed up with, I had a friend of mine, John Eubank, who also worked with Armin on This Is What It Feels Like. John Eubank was a good friend of mine, and he worked with a Dutch singer, Marco Borsato. He's a local singer. The chord progression is actually from a song of Marco's
That John wrote.
Right. For Marco, basically.
Oh, I see.
So we took the chord progression and I just translated it into this whole synth bit, because I'd done that just before with Barbara Sadasher strings.
Well, I was going to say, it does feel like the next progression. So I was wondering if it was like an old classical piece that you took, but it's
yeah. That's how that came about, really. And the word Ligaya, my wife is Filipino, so Ligaya means happiness in Filipino.
No way.
Filipino, that's why.
Fun fact, I never knew that.
There you go.
Amazing, some incredible backstories there. You're going to stick around for a guest mix. We're going to get you set up. So for the next 30 minutes, please welcome Ferry Corsten.